Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. It's my privilege. I get to introduce someone I consider a really close friend of mine. I love everybody, but there's some folks I'm a little bit closer to than others. And this gentleman, to give you a little background, I actually met him through LinkedIn. I went back and looked today. It was February 15th of 2016 when we connected on LinkedIn. So somewhere around that period is when I really started talking to my friend Amir Ghannad, and so he's going to be with us today. He's the author of The Transformative Leader, and the subtitle of his book is Boldly Declare, Courageously Pursue, and Abundantly Achieve the Extraordinary. And Amir is doing amazing things all over this country and a lot of other countries, and I'm going to let him share with you what he does. But welcome to the podcast today, Amir.
Thank you so much, Max. Pleasure to be with you.
So what have you been up to lately? I know I talked to you recently, and you were just pounding out some video training.
Yeah, man. I think, in this day and age where there's always been kind of this tendency to want to do more things virtually. For us anyway, we've been looking for opportunities, but particularly with the current events, we sort of catapulted all of that activity. I literally spent 36 hours in a matter of 6 days doing, facilitating sessions, training, coaching, all kinds of stuff. And I've found actually that it's you don't have to be there for people, if you will. The quality of the human connection is just absolutely wonderful. And you know what, before we jump into this conversation, I also want to say, you had a lot of kind words about me, but I have tremendous admiration for the work that you and Rhea are doing. And I try to keep up with you on social media, but you guys are everywhere doing all kinds of stuff. And it's just so wonderful to call you all, my friends, and know that you're making a significant difference in the lives of people out there. Now, whether you're out on the road or through your podcast or all your posts and your writing, I truly appreciate knowing you guys and really appreciate what you're doing as well.
Absolutely, Amir. And like you said pretty on after we met, your words, we're kindred spirits. That's a phrase you often use, and I'm sure you don't use it with everyone because I know exactly what you're talking about. And it is a privilege. And again, for my audience, Amir is a leadership coach. He's a sought-after keynote speaker, not only in the U.S., but in other countries outside of the U.S. And he has an amazing wife, Connie, and two amazing children, Naveed and Naseem. And they help him operate the Ghannad group. So, but Amir's background, and he's going to tell you a little bit about it more in a second. But he's done all kind of things. But the value that he brings to you, my audience, is his experience as a plant manager of many blue-collar workforces, meaning a high-impact leader, not the typical low-impact manager that I talk about a lot. But Amir, when he was actually a plant manager, was a high-impact leader. And now he's written the book, The Transformative Leader, and he's helping other people all over the world at all different levels become high-impact leaders, using my terms. But what he calls them is the transformative leaders. So tell me a little bit about your background, Amir, and your journey. You have an amazing story as an individual, and I always like for my audience to really know who's talking to them.
Thank you so much, Mac. Yeah, just a little bit of background for me on me personally, and then I'll get into sort of my professional experience and that sort of thing. I grew up in Iran and came to the States when I was 16 years old. Basically didn't know anybody, didn't speak the language, and found myself in a country where, there was a lot of uncertainty around, how do I get around and survive and so on and so forth. And And so I have been truly blessed to have had a wonderful life and, met my wife very early on, and we've been married now 38 years. And so she's got her thumbprint on everything awesome in my life as well. And so, but as a person who was just basically trying to get by, I worked through school and basically I got my master's in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech, and my first job, if you will, out of I did a lot of work in restaurants and so on and so forth, but coming out of college, I started working in Albany, Georgia for Procter & Gamble. There's a plant, and I know you and Rhea were just down there in Albany as well. And I remember, people ask me all the time, they said, well, wait a minute, you have a master's in mechanical engineering and you've worked in manufacturing like for 31 years. But you're always talking about leadership development and culture transformation. I mean, what happened here? How did you end up doing this? And I finally sort of traced it back to the event that actually caused this. Actually, it took me a few years because my answer always was, it wasn't like a one-time 180-degree change. It was just over time. I just pursued my passion, always had passion. But one thing that was really significant to me that stood out to me finally was that I remember, I was 23 years old and I just started working in this plant, and they somebody brought me into the shop, and they had gotten everybody together who was going to work quote unquote for me. And I remember these guys seeing the looks on these people's faces, saying, okay, here we go. Somebody else who just, graduated from college, and they think they know everything. And I clearly remember this look on people's faces, right? They're just kind of standing there with their arms folded and looking at me. And it was kind of a scary situation for me because here I am, I'm their boss, right? I'm supposed to know something and all of that. And I'm like, what the heck do I do now? But the event for me was I realized early on in my career, and I was really, really blessed before I even read a single leadership book. I just really had this in my gut that I was never going to be as good at what these people did, what these folks, men and women did at their craft as they are, because they've been there 15, 20 years and they've seen managers come and go and all of that. So very early on, I kind of switched to a mode of, how can I support them? What am I uniquely qualified to do, instead of going and telling them what to do? And so that particular realization has really blessed me for the rest of my career. I went on to work in Thailand, and then Dover, Delaware, then Germany for a few years. And so I've had a career basically across several different companies. But during the whole time, the central question was, how can I support the people who are working in my organization? So that's a bit about me.
Yeah, that's a lot of good stuff. And you were, just so the listeners will know, you were actually responsible for leadership development globally for Campbell Soup before you rewired. What's that, rewired again? What do you mean when you say rewired?
That's right. Yeah. Well, Mac, I love what I do so much. I don't plan to retire at all. But after about 31 years in the corporate world, I rewired, and I started the Ghannad group with my family. And so this is what we do: leadership development and culture transformation. But you're right. I was working for Campbell Soup for the last 4 years of my corporate career, and that was really the first time that I didn't have another responsibility. I wasn't doing the organizational stuff covertly on the side. That was actually my job. I had responsibility for multiple sites, about 16,000 people within the supply chain across multiple sites. So what I would do is I would go and to various plants and join forces with their leaders and do leadership development and culture transformation work, and I thoroughly enjoyed that work for sure.
That's outstanding, man. And I met you when you were still there, and I've been friends with you through the transition. And I tell folks Rhea and I really do love people, but we don't really hang out with many people. We love you guys like crazy, but we don't see you that often. Actually, we haven't seen you since we spoke at Yale together.
It's been a while.
October 2018, man. We got to do something about that, but we got to let things clear up first.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's I know you understand about timing, and it's one reason everything is lined up perfectly for you to be on this podcast, because I know you're busy. You may not realize, but the first part of this year, the first 11 weeks of the year, I did a series on my book, 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation. It's all about personal transformation. And then I'm filling an 11-week gap with different people, leaders at different levels, and then I'm going to do a 30-part series on my book, Blue Collar Leadership and Culture. And it's going to be all about cultural transformation. And you know about individual transformation and cultural transformation within an organization. So it's like you're the perfect person to have in this gap right here to help transition it. But one of the things that'll help transition it the most is, I know something that you say all the time. I just want you to talk about it. I'm going to say it, though, but then you can talk about it. And what you say, and it's the perfect transition for what I did in the first part of the year for what I'm about to do the second part of the year. But you say, I am the one, and it's not about me. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's a statement that to me sums up servant leadership, Mac. I think, first of all, let me just say that I love your approach. I think we're kindred spirits. Again, as you mentioned, we think very much alike, even though we have different experiences and we kind of use different stories and approaches and all of that. But the principles of what we teach is very similar, in that I really also believe that for you to go out and transform the culture, you've got to start with yourself. Personal transformation has to precede culture transformation. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect in order to go change the culture, but if you refuse to look at yourself, then you're going to basically not going to be as effective. And one of the ways that I think it's really important for a person to become much more effective is to accept responsibility and be accountable. And so when I say I am the one, that it's not intended as an arrogant statement, like I am the one and I'm the only one that matters, because the second part is it's not about me. So when you really look at that statement, it says, look, I'm willing to take responsibility and accountability. The buck stops with me. I'm not going to blame other people or circumstances. I am the one, and you can count on me. But at the same time, it's not about me. It's about the movement that we are in together. It's about the commitments that I have. It's about making a contribution to others. Because my experience has been that if everything is about you, you cannot be the one. Because you're constantly in your head thinking about yourself. And if a leader is all about, their thoughts and their words and everything is about them, then they cannot be the one in the context of the mission that they're on.
That's some good stuff. And when I met you and then I got your book and I read it, and I had just finished Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines. That's how we met. You made a comment on my LinkedIn post or something about that book, and even in that book and some of my other books, you and I are wrapped around the same principles. Like you said, we say it different ways, and that's great because people need to hear it different ways. One way is not enough for everyone. But what that was, your quote right there was one of the things that really resonated with me, because I say the same exact thing, but I say it differently. I say it's not about me, but it starts with me, which is the exact same thing said differently.
Exactly.
And you and I today are an example of that. We're not on this podcast. It's not about us. What we're here to do today and talk about, it's not about us, but I promise you, it started with us working on ourselves and getting better and applying and getting results. So I am the one, and it's not about me, man. That's so awesome. And I'm on talk about something here. I'm on page 72 of your book. I'm gonna just read it, but it's your quote. And I want you to kind of touch on it again, because it goes right along with what we just talked about. But you say here on page 72, and I highly recommend anybody in my audience to get this book. It's just full of some really, really, really good stuff. This is just one line that I had underlined when I originally read it. It says, if enough people declare themselves individually the cause of the current culture and unconditionally commit to a different behavior, we can shift the culture instantly. What distinguishes transformative leaders from others is that they are willing to go first while everyone else is waiting for a critical mass to agree with the direction. Share some thoughts on that.
This is something that for me, when I hear people say change takes a long time and or transformation, is just a long process, I have to disagree. I believe transformation happens instantaneously. What takes a long time is for people to wrap their mind around what's in it for them, what's in it for the organization, and actually make that decision. But there comes a time for each of us when we have that moment of truth, when we decide that we're all in, that we're totally committed, and we're not waiting for somebody else. Our commitment is not conditional based on somebody else's commitment. Our commitment is unconditional and 100%. And when that moment of truth happens, then things really change. And so the story of one of the turnarounds that I was involved in. I was the plant manager of a plant that wasn't doing very well. In fact, we were the worst plant in the company, and our morale was the only thing that was worse than our results. And essentially, we were able to turn ourselves around to become the best in the company and set some benchmark, record results in safety, quality, cost, everything across the industry. And the way this happened was that essentially we caused that moment of truth to happen for a lot of people around the same time. And we said, look, do you want to be in the stands talking about the game, or do you want to be on the court playing the game and actually contributing to it? And I tell you what, man, it was almost like, yes, we did work. I was for 4 years, I was coaching, teaching, even following our transformation. Every Tuesday at 1:00, I was coaching people. I spent a lot of time. And yes, I do know that it takes a tremendous amount of effort. But what I'm telling you is, the transformation happened when a critical mass of people decided that they're not going to wait for somebody else. They're just going to go for it. And we immediately saw a shift in our results and our morale and everything else. So I think, a leader's job is to create the conditions in which people make that choice to be completely committed and actively engaged in moving the organization toward a common vision. And when that moment happens, that's when change happens. And you commit yourself and you go for it. Make it happen.
That's good stuff. And you guys got tremendous results. Hard start, but you guys come out in a completely different way of being, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
so,
I think this is a good distinction you're making. There's a way of being, not just doing some stuff, but who are you being and how are you showing up? Do you have an abundance mentality? Do you want to be collaborative, or do you want to be in your silo and things like that? That way of being just continues to give.
That's something Rhea and I always. Oh, I'm sorry, Amir. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, I'm just saying it's just a gift that keeps on giving. Once you have that way of being, it just affects your behavior and your results.
Absolutely, and that's when Rhea and I are talking to leaders, that's one of the things when we're really talking to, say, top-level leaders or business owners, because we speak to a lot of people who've never really heard this type of stuff that you and I talk about, who've never really been introduced to it. That's why I'm passionate about the blue-collar industries, and because they've been overlooked and underdeveloped for so long. And one thing we have to help them understand, and I want you to dive into it just a little bit deeper from your perspective, but you just touched on it a little bit, and I was kind of alluding to it. But we tell people what we're teaching you about transforming yourself and your culture. It's not about doing something different. That's not going to get you there. You have to choose to be something different. You got to be a completely different person for this to take place. What does that mean to you when I say that from your perspective?
That resonates with me so well, Max, because I always tell people, I say, if you know what to do, and if you know how to do it and all that, knowledge and skills make you a functional expert. But I know I've heard you talk about this as well in the past around these brilliant jerks who know a lot and who can do a lot, but they really suck the life out of the organization, right? So knowing and doing, being able to do is not enough. And what I always tell people is this: the third element is, who are you being? How are you showing up? And it's interesting, when I tell people this, they say, well, what do you mean? I mean, I'm being myself. And I said, well, no, I beg to differ, because you show up differently in different parts of your life. And the problem is that oftentimes we're showing up in our life in default mode. We don't make a clear decision. And Mike, I'd like to tell a quick story to just demonstrate this.
Absolutely.
A few years ago, I bought an iPad off of Craigslist. So I made a call to this ad, and on the other side there was this seemingly timid, perhaps a young man. He answered the phone. I'm asking my questions, and he's just he's saying, I have the iPad. It's 2 years old, and I want this kind of money. And I was thinking, man, this is, am I dealing with an adult here? Just a young man? Finally I said, okay, I'm going to buy the iPad. So he told me, he said, why don't you meet me in the college? There was a college campus near the house, in front of the library. And I said, okay, well, obviously a college kid and whatnot. So anyway, I go over there and I park my car, and I'm standing outside of my car, just leaning on my car, and all of a sudden, I see this police car, drive over and come to a screeching halt, and this policeman jumps out of the car, right? And he comes over there, and my heart's racing, because I'm thinking, oh, geez, is this some kind of sting operation? What did I get myself into? Right? And so this guy, he looks at me with this sort of authority, sort of in his sense of authority in his eyes, and he's got his chest all puffed up and everything, and he's looking at me. He's like, are you here about an iPad? I said, yes. Is there a problem? He said, no, I have it in the car. So he goes to his car, gets the iPad, brings it to me, gives it to me, takes my money, and says, thank you very much, have a great day. And he jumps into his car and drives off. And so I'm standing there, first of all, thankful that I'm not in some jail cell by now or whatever. It was not some kind of sting operation. But then it occurred to me, I'm like, you know what? This person is the same person. However, in their certain aspect of their life, they show up as very timid and all of that. But when this guy puts on that uniform, he says, you know what? Who I'm going to be is a police officer who is in charge, who has authority to make things happen. Because he knows that he cannot jump out of his car as a police officer and say to the bad guys, hey guys, can you guys please cool it down? No, he's not going to be that way. That way of being is not conducive to him doing that job. Right?
Yeah.
And so this really stuck with me, because I think it is important for us to show up a certain way. And this is far beyond fake it till you make it. It's not about faking it at all. It's about being really intentional about what part of your being are you going to bring forward. Now, whether that's you as a leader, you as someone at work, or you with your family, be intentional about who you're being and how you're showing up, and then the doing will follow. And so I think, those are some of my thoughts around this notion of being versus just doing.
Yeah, that's a great story, and I can imagine you were a little excited when he pulled up like that. Yeah, because you never know these days what's going on. So, I gotta make a little bit of humor right here, because not related to your story, just as I listen to you talk all the time. Anyone who's ever heard me speak, they know I always start off, and when I introduce myself, I always tell everybody I'm bilingual, and they usually think that means I speak English and Spanish, but I always tell them pretty quickly that's not it. I speak English and country, and I'm much better at speaking country than English. So when I hear you speak, knowing that you come from Iran, I'm like, he comes from Iran, and he speaks better English than I do, and I've been doing it my whole life.
No way.
But look, Amir, someone called me recently. His name is George Estioko, and I'm gonna get him on this podcast. He's a frontline entry-level guy out in California in the oil industry, and he's trying to be the transformative leader from the front line. He's taking my Blue Collar Leadership book, and he's starting book studies. He's going up the leadership chain, getting permission and getting them to buy the books, but he's doing what I teach him to do on my podcast. He's actually being a leader. But he called me last week. I was up in Boston, and he's told me the story about how he met me, or how he got introduced to me through a Google search, and then he found me, and then he listened to my podcast, and he said the first thing I thought, he said, Mac, I don't mean any offense, I just got to tell you. He said, the first thing I thought was, this guy sounds like Forrest Gump. He's like, what can Forrest Gump teach me about leadership? And he said, but I listened, so funny. And then it got interested. So anyway, when I hear you speak so well, I'm like, well, my tongue just doesn't work that way.
No,
anyway.
Thank you so much. I tell you what, I've picked up a lot of different accents as I've lived in different parts of the world, but it is what it is.
You doing great. So back to your stuff, and I think it rolls right into it. And I want you to talk about, if you can, the 3 C's of success. And before you say it, I'm on page 65 in your book, and I'm just going to just rattle them off right quick for everyone, and then you can re-emphasize whichever is the most important stuff. But the 3 C's of success, as Amir talks about, is complete the past, choose the present, and create the future. And I know there's a lot of underlying stuff there. Talk about some of that for me, Amir.
So Mac, really, let's just kind of start from the present, right? Because every result that you've ever gotten in your life has been the outcome of actions that you took, who you were, what you did, and all that. And all of that happened in the present moment. So if we really want to have a great life, it's all about sort of putting a bunch of these present moments together because they make up your life. So the thing to recognize, though, is in the present moment, you might be experiencing joy, you might be experiencing agony, you might be hopeful, you might be fearful, all this kind of stuff. But those two things, your state of mind in the present moment is affected by two things. One is what you're dragging with you from the past. And whether it's you're bringing peace, you're bringing regret, you're bringing resentment. And the other thing that impacts the present moment is how are you feeling about the future? Are you excited about the future, or are you worried about it? Are you fearful about it? And so I put these 3 C's together, and I kind of cover them in a different order. And I say, well, you know what? The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we complete the past, meaning that if you need to apologize to somebody, to let something go, do it. If you need to forgive somebody, to let it go, do it. If you just need to say, you know what, I don't have access to that person who hurt me or person that hurt, but I am willing to somehow let this go and put the baggage down. That's called completing the past, so you don't bring a bunch of stuff with you that doesn't serve you well in the present moment. The second thing, then I jump to the future and I say, look, depending on what future you're envisioning, that's going to cause you to be a certain way. So you create the future in your mind first, and then you create it in the physical world. So if you're going to create it, you might as well create a future that you're excited about. Don't be dragging all your fears and everything else from the past and projecting into the future. So the second C is create the future that you can be excited about. And then finally, we come back to the present moment and you say, look, I completed my past and I'm really excited about my future, but I just wish I had a different starting point. I wish I had more education. I wish I had a more supportive boss. I wish I was working somewhere else. I wish I was making more money. Well, you know what? Your starting point right now is exactly the only starting point you have. So if you want to be somewhere else, you got to start where you are. So when I say choose the present, I often kind of joke about this. I could have said basically that instead of choose the present, I could have said accept the present, but I didn't do that because it wouldn't go along with my 3 C's. But at the same time, I didn't want to imply that you should accept your present moment and just stay there. So what I'm saying is choose the present, meaning that if you had a choice of starting point, pretend like you chose this present moment to start with. And in a way you did, actually, because everything that you've done or has been done to you or whatever else has brought you to this point. So you might as well embrace it. Like, this is the only starting point. I choose to start at this place and go for creating that extraordinary future.
That's good stuff. And that past is actually kind of what you said in another way is don't let the past contaminate the present, because that's what all that baggage will do, is it'll contaminate today, won't it?
Yes, absolutely. And the thing about it is you have, Rhea has a powerful story. Many of your listeners can think about some things that they could have used as an excuse for themselves to let themselves off the hook and say, I guess I'm just not going to try. But then you have folks like Rhea and others who are saying, you know what, there's some stuff in the past that I wish I had not gone through perhaps, or things like that. But you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as a way to, build a life and make a contribution to others. So there are all kinds of ways for us to deal with the hand that we have been dealt, and completing the past and creating the extraordinary future, and then choosing the present. It gives you an opportunity to actually make the most of what you got.
Good stuff. So now I'm going to switch, and I think it transitions into this pretty well, but I'm going to read a little quote again from your book on page 145, and then it's talking about passion and drama, and then I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit, because in our past, a lot of times there's a lot of drama from the past and a lot of passion and drama in today, and if we ain't careful, we're going to have a lot of drama in the future. But you have the bottom line. You end these lessons with a bottom line, and I'm going to read off the little quote right here I had underlined. It says, passion and drama stem from the same source, which is our strong desire for a certain result or outcome. When we care deeply about something, we also tend to express drama in that area of our life, but if we don't care, there is no passion or drama. Talk about that. That's powerful stuff right there.
Yeah, there's this model that's in my book that my son Naveed and I created in one of our sort of insight development sessions. I think we were in the woods somewhere and just kind of making little sketches and stuff like that. And that shows that basically, if you don't have passion for a topic, it doesn't cause any drama for you. So if you think about any social issue or whatever is going on, and if you don't care about it, you're also not going to experience any drama. But more than likely, when you actually care about a certain outcome on a certain topic, you have a lot of passion for it and you want to influence it, you want it to come out a certain way, more than likely drama also shows up for you in that area. And because of that, people have, we have this sort of perception that passion and drama have to go hand in hand. But that's actually not the case, because, I say something in here that says keep the passion, ditch the drama. And I think there is a way to do that, because, if you separate the mindset and the behavior that it resides in the passion zone and those that reside in the drama zone, you can see very clearly that you cannot be in both zones at the same time. In other words, in the passion zone, you are proactive. In the drama zone, you are reactive. In the passion zone, you're saying, I'm the one. In the drama zone, you're like, hey, I'm not the one. Somebody else got to do this. In the passion zone, we talked about this earlier. In the passion zone, you say it's not about me. You're all about making things happen for others. In the drama zone, it is all about you, right? So there are very clear distinctions, and I ask basically 3 questions that I believe if folks answer for themselves, then they are able to, over time, sort of contain their drama and keep their passion. And those questions really have to do with identifying the reoccurring drama that shows up in your life over and over again. We all have those. Just let's identify them. The second thing is, what can I do to prevent that drama from showing up? Let's do some proactive work to make sure that we don't find ourselves in that situation. And then the third question is, okay, you know what? We're not perfect. Even in the face of the best proactive work that we do, drama is going to show up from time to time anyway. So what am I going to do when I find myself in the midst of that and drama shows up? And so, I recommend some answers to those questions, but then I think everybody's got to answer the questions for themselves so they can keep the passion and ditch the drama.
That's good stuff. So we maybe got about 10 minutes or so left. I want to cover a couple of things, then I want you to just kind of outline what your book is about, who it's for, and what someone can get out of it. So I want to give you a snapshot real quick so you know what's coming, so you can condense that down a little bit so we get it in this 10 minutes. But a couple of things I want you to talk about before we do the book is and it relates to what you just said about 100% committed. I love when you talk about that commitment. And then the other piece is the difference between change and transformation.
Sure. Absolutely. So let's start with the change versus transformation piece. Okay. Mac, I think, we're always, especially if somebody is not willing to go for the status quo, chances are we're all looking for ways to improve things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I talk about in the book is the distinction of transformation that is a little different than just change. Because if you're just trying to make things better and improve things, that's a wonderful start. But I always say all transformations involve change, but not all change amounts to a transformation. You got to change and improve and get better just to survive in some cases, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be extraordinary. So if you want to be extraordinary, if you want to do some extraordinary things, your path to transformation is not a natural extension of your past progression. And so in order to do that, you cannot just start with your current view of your problems and start playing whack-a-mole with those problems. Because, you whack one, another one pops up, right? And you could do that for 20 years and still find yourself in the same situation you were at. But what you have to do is you got to create that future in your mind's eye, step out into that future, and you say, you know what, this is a future I'm excited about. And looking back from there, identify the milestones or the key accomplishments that you have to have in order to make it happen. And then every day, yes, you're still going to change and improve and fix and repair things that show up, but you're doing it with an eye on that future that you're excited about. So this can apply personally, professionally, in any aspect of our life. Now,
absolutely.
Once you determine that future, then the question is, look, how badly do you want it? I mean, I always tell people that a lot of people want to be something, but they don't want to become it, right? I mean, if I could say, Mac, I want to be Mr. Universe. Sure, really great, but I don't want to become it, because the process of becoming that involves me going to the gym for 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. So I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be loved. I want to be whatever. But look, do you want to do the work to become that? And so that requires a certain level of commitment. And the distinction that I make that you are very familiar with is the notion of partial and conditional commitment versus 100% commitment. Now, you see, there are certain aspects of our lives that we don't go for anything less than 100%. I love Southwest Airlines. I fly Southwest all the time and all of that. But if I ever heard that their pilots are sober 98% of the time, I'd drop them like a hot potato. Because right in that area of my life, I go for 100%. Nothing less than 100 is acceptable to me. But yet, we go around making commitments but we're not really committed to them. We have all kinds of conditions. So are you 100% committed to that future? So when you come across these barriers and you get knocked down and all of that, are you going to get back up and go make it happen? So there's obviously a lot more to be said on that, but that's just...
And you got the books full of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got if I'm not mistaken, I think you got a whole chapter committed to talking about that.
Yes.
And so, it's been a pleasure. We're not done yet, but I'm just warming up for the close. But it's been a pleasure having you on here. Anyone who listens to me, first of all, they probably can understand you better than me, but they can also realize that you and I talk the same exact stuff. We say it in different ways, which is awesome. Yeah. And the one thing I want them to know, though, is if you like what Amir's talking about, go buy this book, The Transformative Leader. Tell us about the book and the format of the book and that sort of thing, Amir.
I appreciate it, Mac. I really appreciate your kind words about this book. The book really came out of my own experiences. This wasn't something that came out of just me going to some consulting school or whatever. So this is the lessons I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks. And the first, basically, 1/3 of the book really is aimed at painting a picture of what I call a high commitment culture. What does it look like? What sort of foundational principles and beliefs lead to creating that? What kind of mindset do leaders have when they create those kinds of high commitment cultures? And what are some of the behaviors? And then the last 2/3 of the book is really it's just 20 what I call 1-point lessons. And each of them really kind of brings up a few stories and a couple of distinctions that I have gotten, a lot of feedback on that says, look, the name of the book is The Transformative Leader. So I thought this was going to be a kind of a business book and leadership book, but I found the 1-point lessons to be just as applicable in any aspect of my life, in my personal life. So that's really always very encouraging to me. So these 21-point lessons really have to do with the various aspects of your life and things that you can do to boldly declare, courageously pursue, and abundantly achieve the extraordinary. And they don't necessarily have to be read in the order that they're in. I always encourage people to come through the 20 lessons and kind of look at the final section that summarizes the bottom line, and if it resonates with you, then read that chapter. If not, you're not ready for it, and that's okay.
That's good stuff. And you also have a podcast, so if people like what you're saying right here, tell me about your podcast, where they can find that.
Yeah, so the Transformative Leader podcast is basically the same title as the book, and it's available in most places where people listen to podcasts. Of course, you can always go to the GhannadGroup.com, Ghannad spelled Ghannad, the GhannadGroup.com, and so you'll see I've got over a couple of hundred blog posts and podcasts there that's available. Again, I hope that your listeners will find something useful in their for their journey as leaders.
Yeah, tons of valuable content. And you're on LinkedIn too, Amir?
I am on LinkedIn, and yes, I'd always love to connect with kindred spirits who have an interest in leadership development, culture transformation, making a difference in other people's lives. So yeah, love to connect.
Good stuff. So I hope everyone enjoyed this session with Amir. You and I can talk all day, and we seem like we have sometimes when we get going. But one lesson I want to share with everybody, and you and I are an example of it today, and we both do it a lot, is an abundance mindset. You're doing the same kind of stuff that I'm doing. I'm doing the same kind of stuff that you're doing. We don't see each other as threats. The world needs all the help it can get. And so people with a high degree of character who are living from abundance, we talk about each other and support each other and cheerlead for each other. There is really no competition. There's only really completion, because people will hear you and love you, hear me and hate me, but they need to listen to you. Some people may listen to you and maybe I ain't going to say hate you, because that's different than me saying hate me, but maybe they dislike you less than they like me, so they're attracted to me. The world needs all the help it can get from anyone wanting to give it to them, and you're doing something special. And I didn't talk about this too much today, but Amir speaks. He's a keynote speaker. He does a phenomenal job. I love to go hear and listen to Amir when he's speaking. So if you need a speaker, make sure you check out Amir. If you need his books, audios, podcasts, all kind of things. So thank you for being with us today, Amir.
Thank you so much, Mac. I really appreciate your kind words. And again, the feeling is mutual. Really, really appreciate what you guys are doing in the world. And like you said, there's an abundance of opportunity for us to make a contribution to one another. And I'm just so glad to be on this podcast with you. It's been really great talking to you.
Absolutely. Everyone have a great day. Keep climbing. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.